Welcome to Leadershipisation, which is all things leadership. My name is Beth Berghan. I'm an internationally recognised leadership and communication coach, and I'm here to talk to you today about a range of different topics to do with leadership, communication, and with mental fitness. I'm here every Tuesday, actually. So last week, what we talked about was one of the foundational steps to becoming a super communicator as a leader. We looked at helping you to start to recognize the difference between practical conversations, emotional conversations, and social conversations. Now, if you missed that, it will be in this feed here somewhere. So scroll down or scroll up until you actually find that. And you can listen to that and get some really good tips about what you could do. Today, I want to talk to you about a phrase that is a really vital phrase for you as part of your leadership journey. And this phrase relates to your self-leadership, your leading of others, your leading of leaders, and it also relates to you if you are leading the whole of the organization. And the phrase is this. You might actually want to write this one down. The phrase is this. It's actually an NLP presupposition, but here's the phrase. There is no failure, only feedback. There is no failure, only feedback. Now, it takes a little while for this to settle with some people. It just kind of sits there. What's this about? What do you mean? What do you mean you can't fail? I've failed lots of times. So it takes a little bit to get your head around it. So let's examine it. The first thing is failure is not a person. So you cannot actually be a failure. You cannot be failure. You can experience it. You can certainly experience it. And when we examine failure, it's actually a judgment that we might make or that we believe others might make about our short-term results. It's a bit of a judgment about short-term results. The funny thing is that we can't change unless we take action. When we take action and do something, that's when we get feedback. And if we look at it as feedback, not failure, that's when we get the learning, and that brings about the change. Otherwise, we do nothing and there's no change at all. Yeah, we're sitting there doing nothing. Now, if what you're able to do is to turn your head to this and you see it as, I'm collecting data along the way. I'm collecting data about what's working and what's not working. I'm collecting data about what I could do differently. I'm collecting data that is helping me to grow as a person in my role, with my contribution to my own life, to my family, my community, and the organizational business that I work in. What it means is that you're using that data then to do the self-reflection. Now, if you've been traveling this journey with me a little way, you will know that I believe very strongly that self-reflection is vital, that honest self-reflection. And what might actually happen when you start to collect all of that data and you start to look at what's going on, you may discover, one of the things that you may discover is, the reason that I'm not succeeding is because I have limiting beliefs about me. I actually believe somewhere deep inside that I'm not good enough. I actually believe that I have to work 5 times harder. I actually believe I'm not lucky. I actually believe that I'm not worthy of success. There are all sorts of limiting beliefs that we're likely to have. And the really weird thing about those limiting beliefs, which are sometimes labeled as fears, is that they really come down to two things. One is, I'm not good enough, or I'm not worthy, or I'm not skinny enough, or I'm not rich enough, or, I am not enough. And the second one is, I'm not loved, or I'm not lovable. Okay? And those two are actually quite wrapped up in each other, not interdependent, but yeah, they fall out of each other a whole lot. The rest of them are just kind of stories that actually come back to those two things. And that's a conversation for another time. And that's something, if you don't have a coach, it's worth your while thinking about getting a coach to actually explore that with you. If you do have a coach, ask, can we do something to check to see what my limiting beliefs are so that I can get on top of those? What happens is that these limiting beliefs often create a situation where, without us even realizing it, we choose to fail. And we choose to fail for a number of different reasons, or not reasons. We choose to fail, and our choice is demonstrated or is obvious in a number of different ways. We may simply not try anything. Just don't try it. If we don't try it, then we can't fail. Yeah? If we don't try it, we can't fail. Or we might say to ourselves, well, I'm getting started on it, but I'm waiting until it's absolutely perfect. So we let perfectionism prevent us from failing, because in our minds, we believe if it's not perfect, then we failed. And so if you're a perfectionist, you will have experienced this. It holds you back. It holds you back. It holds you back all the time. Yeah. It may be that what we've done, or our beliefs or our fear of failure are demonstrated by, just give it a bit of a go. Yeah, I don't really think it's going to be successful, so I'll give it a small go. And we give it a half-hearted attempt. Or because we don't want to deal with whatever the issue is, because maybe failure is already staring us in the face, in relationships, we settle. We just settle. This will do. I've tried to change it. It's not working. This will do. Or in a team situation, if what we're doing is managing a team of people and there are one or two people in there and we just can't seem to get them to lift their productivity, lift their motivation, lift their interaction with others, we go and negotiate with others about shifting them. So we shift the problem. We either settle or we shift the problem. So what can we do about this? What can we do about this? I've already talked about working with a coach to explore those limiting beliefs. It is absolutely freeing when you start to deal with those limiting beliefs, because it allows you to go, to be all that you are, to move to the next level. So firstly, it's important that you are kind to yourself and kind to others. What do I mean by that? It's kind of like when, the best example I can give you is a baby is learning to walk, yeah? So when a baby's learning to walk, they start by crawling and we get all excited because they're moving, and then they clamber up on the side of something and we're cheering and we're so excited because they're standing up. They're having a go at standing up. And the first time they let go of that table or that this whatever it is they're holding on to, they slam down onto their butts. And we get really excited. Yeah, you're doing this beautifully. Then they have a go at walking. And it's never easy for them. You can see their minds thinking, where do I have to put my hands here? Where does my weight need to be? And you watch that journey as they move from not being able to walk at all to mastery. And never, ever, ever do we say to a child, just sit down here, kid. It's never going to work for you. You're going to fail. Look at these first few attempts that you've given. Yeah, you're never going to be able to get on top of this. We would never say that to a child. Neither would we say that to someone who's recovering from an injury, who's relearning how to walk. Because in our minds, we have this expectation that it's the next step. We know that they're going to actually master it. They weren't perfect the first time they did it. And what they needed was your encouragement to get better and better at it. They knew this is what the next thing was. And so they kept at it. And if you've had a number of children or the opportunity to watch a number of children traveling this journey, they travel it at different speeds. They travel it in a different way. There is no one way to learn how to do it. But what keeps them going is the encouragement and the delight of whoever is around them. You would never tell a small child, sit down, you're never going to get this walking thing sorted. Just stay there. Think about how that impacts into the work environment. I'll give you another example. Thomas Edison, he invented the light bulb. And there's a quote, I can't remember it word for word, but the quote's along the lines of, 10,000 attempts, and I've got 10,000 ways that it didn't work. But he kept on going, because every single time it wasn't failure, it was feedback for him. Every single time what he knew was that he was almost there. He was getting closer. A sporting analogy, Michael Jordan, an internationally renowned NBL player. And he quotes about, I got to be so good at this process of shooting a basket because I failed doing it. I improved my technique. I learnt. I watched what I was doing. I took the feedback from other people. So for what you're able to do is to actually look at failure as part of the process. See it as part of the process. See that it's there to teach us, and it will teach you far more than success does, particularly if success comes really easy. So, if success does come really easy to someone, that's when that self-reflection is actually just as valuable, because it allows you to go back and look at, what did I do really well? So that you can then duplicate that. You can repeat that and share that with others. Success, when it comes easy, doesn't teach you the kind of lessons that failure does. You haven't been faced with all those high-level problems. You haven't had to get resourceful. Failure is not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing at all, because it brings you those lessons and that feedback. And what I want you to remember is that you did not fail. Your efforts failed. What you did with the knowledge that you had at that particular time failed. Gather the data. Learn the lessons. Now, some other things that are really important are these, because we don't want you to be thinking, I failed, I've got the data, and I'm emotionally impacted by this. So It's the first thing is to manage those emotions. So that self-regulation is important, that emotional regulation. Then come back and do that reflection. Look for where the gaps are. What could I have done differently? What could I try now that I didn't try then? Seek some advice from a mentor or a coach. And then manage your emotions well enough to give it another try. You've got this. You've got the feedback. You've got the feedback. And see the feedback unemotionally as the data that enables you to move forward. The power is in the data, not in the negative emotion. And, I'm all about holding on to that power. Some self-coaching questions that I'd really like you to ask yourself are these. And again, you might want to write these down. The first one is, what 3 things would you attempt today, right now, if you could not fail? So reflect on that and write down your answers. What 3 things would you attempt today if you could not fail? It's really interesting, you'll find. The reason I've given you 3 is because sometimes it's a bit hard to just think of only one, whereas, what is my top 1? 3. I'm sure there will be others. Think of those top 3. The second part of the question, and this will require a deeper level of self-reflection, is this: why are you not attempting them now? Or what is holding you back from not attempting them now? What is holding you back from attempting them now? Now, if you can answer those questions, and you do that with honest self-reflection, then you'll identify some of those fears and those limiting beliefs. And that will help you to identify what are the real obstacles here. To me, actually understanding there is no failure, there's only feedback. What's the real obstacle that's stopping me from doing things? What's really going on? What are my limiting beliefs here? As a leader, your goal needs to be to encourage your team to be able to fail without being a failure or without feeling like a failure. How might you do that? You could ask. The first thing is to create a culture and an environment where it's perfectly okay to have a bright, fresh idea. It's perfectly okay to have a different way or to propose a different way of doing things. And it's perfectly okay to make a mistake. Because all of these things contribute to the growth of the individual, the growth of the team, and ultimately the productivity or the output in the business or the organization that you're in. There is no failure, only feedback. A lot to take in, I know. Thank you so much for today. Anyone who's watching, please put #replay, comments and questions below, or reach out to me personally. I'm looking to move towards just having a Q&A session. So if people can't make that in the next couple of weeks, I'll start to collect those questions in for people to answer. So thank you so much. It's my pleasure to have spent this time with you, and I'm excited to see you next Tuesday. Leadershipisation, all things